Rainbow Six Siege has been constantly growing in popularity after a rough launch over a year ago. It's been bringing in many new players on a weekly basis, and with a new season of content kicking off, many more new players will be making their way into Rainbow Six. The goal of today's video is to aid the jump newer players are going to make into Siege, so today I will be sharing 10 tips that stood out to me and helped me increase my skill level in the game. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into this. Sound is your #1 resource in Siege, and if used properly, allows you to pinpoint exactly where an enemy is. In most FPS games, sound will come through a wall, but in Siege, this isn't the case. Gunshots, for example, they go around walls instead of traveling directly through them. Hearing gunshots to your right doesn't necessarily mean that they are immediately to your right, but instead means that the quickest path for the sound to get from them to you is to your right. As a beginner, sound is a little tough to get the hang of, but after some practice, pinpointing enemy locations before you even see them will become second nature. Some sounds, such as footsteps and breach charge placement, however, will travel through walls and other surfaces. Another thing worth adding is that if you're playing Siege without a headset, this already puts you at a huge disadvantage. So if you have the extra money to put towards a decent headset, and you plan on spending extensive time in Siege, do so and your map awareness will increase greatly. Also, not only are you trying to hear enemies, but they're trying to hear you as well. So being aware of the surface you're walking on and the amount of noise it makes will help you out a great deal. If you're moving across hardwood, tiles, or metal, your footsteps will be much louder, and it is recommended you crouch and move slowly instead. Whereas if you're moving on carpet, sprinting will make less noise than it would on another surface. Next on our list is Peeker's Advantage. Learning Peeker's Advantage will be your first big step into becoming a more competitive player. In casual matches, it happens, but it isn't as common, but in a ranked game, it can and will make the difference in a loss or a win for your team. Siege is an online game, and with that comes latency. Latency is the amount of time it takes to send information from your PC or console to the server and then to other players in your game, which on average is about 250 milliseconds. This means that when you peek a corner, you will see your opponent for a fraction of a second before they see you. The best way to imagine this playing out is a ghost following your character. Your enemies will be seeing the ghost, so you can use this small window of advantage to get a kill if you have fast reflexes. To get the most out of Peeker's Advantage, having map knowledge will be incredibly beneficial. If you know where an enemy is, you can aim down sights, pre-fire as you peek the corner, and kill them before they even have a chance to do anything. Peeker's Advantage is best used going from crouched to standing, so finding an object on the map where you're completely hidden while crouched, but able to see when standing will yield the best results when it comes to Peeker's Advantage. The one downside of the Peeker's Advantage is that yes, your enemies see the ghost version of you as you peek, but going back to cover, the ghost may still be out in the open, even though you are once again in cover. Keep in mind that this ghost is only about 250 milliseconds behind you, but those milliseconds can make the difference between you living and dying. Next on our list is spawn peeking. While this doesn't happen every single game, you are bound to encounter the person who attempts to spawn kill you as you attack the objective. Maps such as House, Presidential Plane, Cafe, and Bank, spawn kills are pretty common. This happens when attackers recklessly rush out of spawn to get to the objective, and a defender makes quick work of them before they're detected and they head back inside. When you spawn into a game and you've already droned at the objective, instead of immediately rushing forward, check your drone if it wasn't destroyed, or maneuver it around towards the objective, or you can simply just wait about 5 seconds before you run out of spawn. It takes 2 seconds for an enemy to be detected outside, and waiting a few seconds will ensure that you aren't the first one dead at the start of a round. Spawn peeking is an issue that you can prevent by not being reckless in your game. Up next is murder holes. The great thing about Siege is the destructible walls and the ability to make murder holes to give you a line of sight on the enemy. These can be used to give you an advantage if the enemy isn't expecting them to be there. There are 2 different types of murder holes you can make, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. The first is the single small murder hole made by meleeing the wall or shooting it with your weapon, and it is super quick and easy to make. This provides you with a limited line of sight into another room, and it can be used to get kills if an enemy happens to cross your line of sight. But if an enemy is aware of your murder hole, they can simply shoot through it and kill you. The other type of murder hole you can make is the line, which is a collection of small murder holes in close proximity to each other, and these allow more lines of sight into the other room, and it also makes it less likely you'll get wall banged by an enemy, simply because there's so many holes to choose from and you have the ability to strafe between the holes. The cons of this type are that it makes it easier for an enemy to clear the area, and they take a large portion of the prep phase to set up. Each type of murder hole is effective in its own regard, and it is purely situational, but making and using murder holes is a must-have trick to learn as you play Siege. Number 5 on our list goes to camera locations and usage. As a defender, cameras are an incredibly useful tool you have at your disposal, and as an attacker, they can quickly compromise your approach on the objective. When playing defense, learning the areas that cameras can cover will help you better defend the objective and see where exactly your opponents are coming from. A large portion of outside cameras will be destroyed by the attackers as they push into the objective, which will also give you a rough idea of what areas they will be coming from. When using cameras, it is important that you don't spot enemies, as that will notify the enemy they've been spotted, and in turn they will shoot out the camera and you lose that valuable information. When playing as an attacker, taking out cameras will be your top priority when you spawn into a match, and then using your drone as an additional eye once you get into the building. As stated before, defenders can use this to get an advantage and knowledge of your location and ruin your plans on attacking the objective from your current point. There are several cameras on each map. Learn their locations, what all they can see, and how to effectively use them will improve you and your attacking and defending abilities. The next spot on our list goes to team composition. As a new player, you may feel overwhelmed with the amount of operators for you to unlock. Some have a higher skill gap and require extensive practice, but there are a few operators you can use that will greatly benefit your team, and honestly, every team needs these operators in each round. As a defender, Rook is an excellent starting operator that can benefit every person on your team. As Rook, you can set down body armor for your fellow operators and potentially save their life in a gunfight. His guns aren't too bad to get started with, and overall he has a rather low learning curve, so someone picking up the game for the first time should have no problem getting right into it with Rook. As an attacker, one operator that you should always have is Thermite. His special ability allows him to destroy reinforced walls. Being able to destroy these reinforced walls opens up many new avenues of attack to get the drop on your enemy, instead of being funneled to a specific entry point due to your lack of big fucking holes in the wall. Seriously though, there are some characters that are a must on teams, and if you see your team lacking in these operators, make the play and bring them into the team. Next on our list, we have speed and armor differences. Each operator has a different armor and speed rating: 1 speed, 3 armor, 2 speed, 2 armor, or 3 speed and 1 armor. Like the names imply, their ratings affect how fast your character moves, how much more or less damage they take from enemy fire, and the most important thing of all is how much noise they make when they're moving. If your intentions as a defender are to roam around the map and be sneaky, playing as a 3 armor character is not what you should be doing, as you make the most amount of noise. Literally anything you do in Siege will make noise. Aiming down sights, moving your character in the slightest, reloading your weapon, all of these will make a noticeable amount of noise, and it is more than enough to give away your position if you are attempting to hide. Play your character with their speed and armor rating in mind. Next on our list goes to knowing your game modes. There are a total of 3 different competitive modes in Siege: Hostage Rescue, Secure Area, or Bomb. Knowing the proper operators to pick for each game mode will prevent you from making stupid mistakes like fusing the hostage as an attacker. Other things to keep in mind: Bomb mode has 2 objectives, and having the ability to get between these 2 objectives can make the difference between winning and losing a round. When playing Bomb, it's best to leave a roaming hole between objectives instead of using a doorway and reinforcing all of the walls. This way you have multiple entrances into the room if an attacker happens to get in. Use things such as impact grenades or shotguns to blow holes in a wall and make entrances and exits into critical objectives. The 9th spot on our list goes to don't buy DLC operators straight away. As of the time of this video, Rainbow Six Siege has 10 total DLC operators. Unless you own the Season Pass or Complete Edition, you will have to buy these operators outright for a total of 25,000 renown. Until you are completely comfortable with the game and a large selection of operators unlocked, I personally advise against spending a large amount of renown on a single DLC operator. If you intend to buy a DLC DLC operator, research them extensively and find out if they suit your playstyle, and then consider them as an option. Nothing would be worse than saving up all of that renown and then buying an operator that you really don't like to play with. And last but certainly not least on our list, use your drone. This has been touched on in our previous points, but using your drone is something you must learn to constantly do and rely on in an attack situation. If your drone survives the prep phase, lead it back outside and pick it up, and this will give you 2 drones for the round. As an attacker, never blindly rush a room. Instead, use your drone to scout the area and see if there are any potential threats in the next room. This provides you with critical information and can prevent you from running straight into a Capcan trap, welcome mat, or even an enemy operator. Avoid tagging enemies with your drone as it can potentially give away your drone's position, but do make frequent use of your drone in rounds so you can stay away from nasty surprises. Anyways guys, this concludes today's video. We really hope that you found it helpful, and if you did, it would be greatly appreciated if you could click that like button. And hey, if you're new around here, subscribe as well so we can keep you up to date with the latest in Rainbow Six Siege news, tips, and more. As always, thank you guys for watching Split Screen, and we will see you next time.